Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 113, starting from the bottom of the bottom of 112b, just for context. And what is the difference between the private altar of an individual and the public altar at the site of the tabernacle when it was located in Gilgal, Nov, and Gibeon? It is that on a private altar there is no placing of hands on the head of an offering, no slaughter in the north. And now we're turning to Zevachim 113a, top of the page, the words Umatan. Umatan saviv utinufa vehagasha. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein min chamavama mechihun b'gdei shares. Uchli shares nechav b'chizalat dam nechav. Okay, there's no placement of blood around all the sides of the altar and offerings for which this is required, no waving of meal offerings, and no bringing of meal offerings to the corner of the altar prior to removal of the handful. Rabbi Yehuda says there is no meal offering sacrificed on an altar outside the temple and requiring a member of the priesthood to perform the sacrificial rites. The priestly service vestments, the service vessels, the pleasing aroma to God, the partition for the blood, meaning the red line dividing the upper and lower halves of the altar, and the priest's washing of hands and feet before his service, all do not apply to sacrifice on private altars, as the service there need not be performed by priests nor follow all the protocols of the temple service. Aval hazman hano tarviatame shavim bazeh. But the intent to sacrifice or partake of the offering beyond its designated time, which renders the offering pigul, the halacha of portions of the offering left over, notar, beyond the time it may be eaten, and the prohibition against eating consecrated meat while ritually impure are equal in this, a private altar, and that, a public altar. That's the Mishnah, and now we continue on to the Talmud. Zog the Heilige Talmud, my chutz megita, amar ish lakish chutz mimokom badugla, amar lo Rabbi Yochanan, velo kol eretz Yisrael beduvehi. The Mishnah teaches that one who burns the red heifer outside its pit is not liable for sacrificing outside the temple courtyard. You can more clarify as what is the meaning of outside its pit. Reish Lakish said it means outside the place that was inspected to ensure that it is not a grave site, which would render it impure. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, but is not all Eretz Yisrael inspected for impurity? Therefore, there is no need for the site of the burning of the red heifer to be specially inspected. But wait a minute. There's grave sites in Israel, so what's Rabbi Yochanan saying? Doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, let's continue. Okay. Rather, Rabbi Yochanan said the term outside its pit is referring to a case where the priest slaughtered the red heifer within the walls of Jerusalem and not in the place outside the walls as the Torah prescribes, and it shall be brought outside the camp, and it shall be slaughtered before him. Numbers 19:3. ולא כמה כגון ששבת חוץ לחומה שלא כנגד הפסח גם הדבר הבא ששבת שלו כנגד הפסח בסעודה שנאמר בשער ויזהר. The Gemara challenges but let Rabbi Yochanan interpret it to be a case where the priest slaughtered it outside the wall but not opposite, meaning not in the direction of the entrance of the temple to the temple, as Rav Ada bar Ahava says. If he slaughtered it in a location not opposite the entrance, it is disqualified, as it is stated with regard to red heifer, and you shall give it to Eleazar the priest, and it shall be brought outside the camp, and it shall be slaughtered before him. And Eleazar the priest shall take its blood with his finger, and sprinkle its blood toward the front of the tent of meeting 7 times. Numbers 19, 3 and 4. Ma hazata keneged hapetach av shchitata keneged hapetach v'chitema lo makish ha'itma shachadash lo keneged hapetach Rabbi Yochanan amar pesur v'shachar v'yizar rish lakish amar v'shira and v'chus b'machaneh v'shachar. The slaughter of the red heifer and the sprinkling of his blood are juxtaposed so that one will draw the following conclusion. Just as its sprinkling must be performed opposite the entrance, so too its slaughter must be performed opposite the entrance. And if you would say that Rabbi Yochanan does not juxtapose the 2 verses for the purpose of this comparison, that is difficult. But it was stated with regard to a red heifer, slaughtered in a location not opposite the entrance that Rabbi Yochanan says. It is disqualified as and it shall be slaughtered is juxtaposed with and sprinkle. Reish Lakish says it is fit since it is stated and it shall be brought outside the camp and it shall be slaughtered, indicating that it may be slaughtered in any location outside the camp. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan amar b'sura, Rabbi Yehoshua amar k'shera, Rabbi Yochanan amar b'sura v'sar v'hizah. And it was also stated that Amoraim disagree with regard to a red heifer that the priest burned not opposite the entrance to the temple. Rabbi Yochanan says it is disqualified, and Rabbi Yehoshua says it is fit. The Gemara explains their reasoning. Rabbi Yochanan says that it is qualified because of an additional juxtaposition, as it is stated, and the heifer shall be burned in its sight, its skin, and its flesh, and its blood, with its dung, shall be burned. Numbers 19:5. On the previous verse it is stated, and sprinkle of its blood toward the front of the tent of meeting. This teaches that, just as the sprinkling of the blood must be done opposite the entrance, so too must the burning be done opposite the entrance. And Rabbi Yehoshua says that a red heifer that was burned in a location not opposite the entrance is fit, as the verse states, with its dung, pirsha, shall be burned, which is interpreted homiletically to mean in the place that its soul departs for death, there shall be its burning. Just as no specific location is given for the soul's departing, so too the burning need not be performed in a specific location. Since Rabbi Yochanan holds that the red heifer must be slaughtered opposite the entrance to the temple, why does he not understand the term outside of its pit to be referring to its slaughter in any location not opposite the temple entrance? Amri lo mi boya kaman lo mi boya chutz lachoma derachok yirachaka elaviru lifnim min hachoma dikra v'karava ve'ema titkashar la kamashmalan. The Gemara answers say that Rabbi Yochanan is speaking, utilizing the style of "it is not necessary" as follows. It is not necessary for the Mishnah to teach that in slaughtering a red heifer outside the wall in a location not opposite the entrance, one does not transgress the prohibition against slaughtering outside the temple courtyard. In that case, it is clearly disqualified, as he has distanced it from where it is meant to be slaughtered. But even if one slaughtered it inside the wall of Jerusalem, so that he brings it closer to the temple, and one might say, that it is a valid way of slaughtering the red heifer, Rabbi Yochanan teaches us that nevertheless it is disqualified. Amar ma, amar ma, amar ma, amar ma. Okay. Second, Amar mar, Amar lo Rabbi Yochanan. Velo kol haaretz Eretz Yisrael b'duka hi ma'akim b'chigi mar savar yarad ma'bul Eretz Yisrael u'mar savar lo ered. The Gemara returns to the disagreement cited earlier. The master says that Rabbi Yochanan said to Reish Lakish, but is not all of Eretz Yisrael inspected for impurity? Since Reish Lakish's response to this question is not mentioned, the Gemara clarifies, with regard to what do they disagree? One sage, Reish Lakish, holds that the flood in the time of Noah descended upon Eretz Yisrael and its residents perished. It is therefore necessary to inspect the place where the red heifer is burned to ascertain whether it is a grave site. And one sage, Rabbi Yochanan, holds that the flood did not descend upon Eretz Yisrael, and there is no reason to suspect that there are lost graves there. A moment. Continuing on. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak u'shnehem mikra echad darshu. Ben Adam amar la at eretz lo mitohara hi lo gushma biyom za'am. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, and both of them, meaning Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, interpreted the same verse stated by Ezekiel with regard to Eretz Yisrael to derive their opinions. The verse states, "Son of man, say to her, you are a land that is not cleansed, nor rained upon in the day of indignation." Ezekiel 22:24. Rabbi Yochanan Savanat Matmakra Eretz Yisrael Milo Mitoraat Klum Yordu Lahim Sham Biyom Zam Perish Lakish Savar Kipshate Aretz Lo Mitoraat Mi Lo Yordu Alayich Keshamim Biyom Zam. Rabbi Yochanan holds that the verse is asking a rhetorical question. Eretz Yisrael, are you not cleansed from the impurity imparted by corpses? Did the rains of the flood fall upon you on the day of indignation? And Reish Lakish holds that this verse should be read all in accordance with its straightforward meaning as a statement, not a question. You are a land that is not cleansed. Didn't rains fall upon you on the day of indignation? Therefore, the bodies of all those who perished in the flood are somewhere in the ground. If that's the case, you can't find them. I don't get that. I don't know. Okay, whatever. Ace fish, Lakish Yochanan Chatzerus Hayu Yerushalayim, V'niyos al Sala, V'tachtein Chalol B'pnei Kever HaTahom, U'mevi'in Nashim Merbaos, V'yorados U'migadelos, Sham B'pneim Lepara. Reish Lakish raised an objection to Rabbi Yochanan from the Mishnah Parah 3:2. Courtyards were built in Jerusalem on stone, and beneath these courtyards there was a hollow space due to the concern that there was a lost grave in the depths. The space served as a barrier, preventing the impurity from reaching the courtyards above. And they would bring pregnant women, and those women would give birth in those courtyards. And those women would raise their children there, thereby ensuring that the children never became impure. This would enable the children to assist in the rite of the red heifer. Interesting. Courtyards were built in Jerusalem on stone, and beneath these courtyards was a hollow space due to the concern that there was lost grave in the depths. The space served as a prayer. Oh, wow. It's like an incubator, a pure zone. Wow. Maybe Shavarim Yaga Ben Dilatos Vizinakos Yoshvin Alihem because of Sheleven Viyadan Yashua Goman. And once the children reached the appropriate age, the priests would bring oxen there, And on the backs of these oxen they would place doors, and the children would sit upon the doors, so that the doors would serve as a barrier between them and the impurity in the depths. And they would hold cups of stone, which are not susceptible to ritual impurity, in their hands. And they would ride upon the oxen to the Siloam pool, and they filled the cups with water, and would sit back in their places upon the oxen, and be taken to the Temple Mount. The water in the cups would be used for the rite of the red heifer. Apparently, there is a concern that hidden sources of impurity exist in Eretz Yisrael. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehoshua, said that Rav Yochanan would reply, the sages established a higher standard for purity in the case of the red heifer, but generally speaking, there is no concern for hidden sources of impurity in Eretz Yisrael caused by those who perished in the flood. Eis Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish פעם אחד מצאו עצמות בלשכת דיר העצים וביקשו לגזור טומאה על ירושלים. אמר רבי יהושע על רגליו ואמר לא בושה וכלימה היא לנו שנגזור טומאה על עיר אבותינו. איה מתי מבול, איה מתי נבוכדנצר. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan raised an objection to Reish Lakish from a Braita, Tosefta Eduyot 3:3. Once, human bones were found in the chamber of the woodshed, and the sages sought to decree impurity upon Jerusalem, meaning to proclaim all who go there to be impure, as if a corpse can be found in a chamber of the temple. There is reason to be concerned that there are lost graves in other places. As well. I mean, there's burial sites in Israel. I don't get it. I just don't get this whole thing. There's Har Zesim. I mean, Har Menucha. I mean, there's burials all over the place. This doesn't make sense to me. Rabbi Yehoshua stood upon his feet and said, is it not a shame and a disgrace for us to decree impurity upon the city of our fathers because of this concern? Show me, where are the dead of the flood? And where are all of the dead killed by Nebuchadnezzar? Hachanami havo epaninu ve'i apanu. Rabbi Yochanan infers from the fact that Rabbi Yehoshua said this, is this not to say that there were no lost graves in Jerusalem from the flood? Because the flood did not take place there? Reish Lakish responds that according to your reasoning, so too were there not those killed by Nebuchadnezzar in and around Jerusalem who were mentioned by Rabbi Yehoshua? Certainly there were, as Nebuchadnezzar killed many people in Jerusalem. Rather, there were, and others removed the bodies. Here too, with regard to the dead of the flood, there were, and others removed the bodies. And it is possible to ask, and if they were removed, why is it necessary to be concerned that there may be impurity in the place of the red heifer? Turning to 113b now. Ha-ipeno. Nihi idiyemno Yisraelim mikula Eretz Yisrael lo ipeno. Okay, as they were already removed, one can respond, the Braita deals exclusively with Jerusalem. Granted that the bones of those who perished in the flood and at the hands of Nebuchadnezzar were removed from Jerusalem, but they were not removed from all of Israel. Therefore, outside Jerusalem, the red heifer may be slaughtered only in a place that has been inspected. And we'll stop here, continue on with the next. Somewhat interesting.